when I approached you, 3 years ago or 4 years ago to talk about this idea. The idea was that now that the industry is sort of established here in New Mexico, we've got year-round production, we've got people working. What about the folks in New Mexico who are on the creative end, on what we call above the line, the writers, the directors, the producers, who don't usually get to take part in the big Hollywood productions or the big productions coming from outside the state? We've got some talented people here, and how can we help them get to that next level and get their stuff made and make it into a viable product that they actually, has a return on investment and they can do it again.
Right. And, when people see a film or a television show up on the screen or on wherever they see it these days, on their phone.
On their cell phone, right.
Their cell phone. But they don't realize that an important process of getting a project done is what we call development.
Right.
And the development is so important, and studios and production companies in Hollywood have multiple projects always in development. And that development process is where you bring and you find the right story, you find the right people, and you attach the right people to the project. And then the difficult part is finding someone to help finance the production.
That's it.
And so, I've been in the business for a long time, and I always have projects in development. So I'm always talking to agents and actors and directors and trying to attach people to projects. Right. One of the great things, why don't you talk a little bit about our team? We've been able to assemble a great team with different expertise.
Well, that was, I talked to you again 3 years ago. You were one of the first people I approached, and because I knew somewhat about your background, I've learned that you even have more experience than I thought you did. So that was great. And you're connected to the important part we're talking about here. About financing and distribution and how all that works. And it's getting so complicated these days. You need somebody who knows this stuff. It's one thing to theoretically think, well, I can sell my piece to my project to Netflix or whatever, but you need to know how all these things work and what you can expect to get back from them. So you've had production experience and building a film studio, for God's sakes. I mean, come on, how much more can you be into this industry there? So anyway, the other members, Sean Cardinale, who worked for Artisan Films, and he was in their development wing, and Sean was involved in particular. Everybody knows the Blair Witch Project. Sean was one of the first people on the ground with that project, helping identify that as a viable project and getting it through the development process. And of course, I don't know if it's still considered the biggest return on investment ever, but it's right up there. It made hundreds of millions of dollars on extremely small investment. But Sean's very experienced in reading scripts and critiquing scripts, and that, which is an important part of what we do, is taking scripts in and really finding the good ones and molding them into even better pieces. You brought in Dan, who you had met. Dan Landis, and tell me a little bit about Dan's background.
Well, Dan's an interesting guy because I met him at a conference like this, and he introduced himself as a coach, a cross-country coach, and he said, do you mind if I give you a script to read? And I said, I always say, sure, I'll read your script. And I took the script home and I read it, and I said, this is really well done, And so I called Dan and I said, hey, Dan, did you take a course in script writing, or this is really well done? He says, well, I'm really Dr. Dan Landis, and right. and I was an English professor, and I taught script writing, and I was the chair of several universities in the English department, and so I said, and at the time, and you'll probably remember this, I had optioned out the Jack Johnson project that I'm looking to do,
right.
and we got together, the three of us, and I gave each of you the manuscript, and
I remember
you
that.
guys went off, and like 4 days later, Dan says, "I have the first draft of the script."
Yeah.
And I said, "What?"
Yeah, I realized we weren't fooling around with an amateur here. I was still like absorbing the story and researching and everything, and he had a first draft.
So he sent me the first draft, and we started writing, and right then I knew we needed him on the writing team.
Right.
And he brings so much to the project. We have a project called based on the Taos Massacre, and he took the first shot of it. He always says, "I want the first shot. I want the first shot."
He jumps right in every time.
He wrote a 400-page script. In about a week and a half or 2 weeks, and I'm like,
it's insane.
Wow! And actually, I was on a train. I took a train to Los Angeles, and that's all I did was read the script between there. And so he's a real strong asset. So why don't you talk about our other team members?
Well, the newest guy who's come in just in the last 6 weeks or so, I think officially, Jose Garcia. Is a entertainment law attorney, and or one of the many things he specializes in. And I didn't realize until we had talked recently, back when we announced that we were forming Blue Sky Producers Lab. Back about this time last year, we announced it. In fact, at last year's Film and Music Experience. I went home. We'd had a newspaper article that day appeared in the Journal, and then we had the live press conference for TV and stuff. And I got back home that afternoon, and I had this guy called me and said, what you guys are doing is great. This is a fantastic idea. I really totally support it, and if I can help you at all, I will. And I just sort of thanked him and filed it away. And then we got together and everybody, "Oh, Jose, that was the guy who called me." So I guess he was kind of destined to be part of this group at some point. But the importance of what he does, bringing a legal background to this, is can't be understated. What we're doing again is we're really trying to bring a level of professionalism to what we do here in terms of presenting projects and stuff. And he's the guy that'll cross the T's, dot the I's, and make sure everything's in order. So.
Yeah, and again, who says I had a project that we needed to have some legal counsel, and I had called Talia Kosh with the New Mexico Lawyers for the Arts, because there's not that many entertainment lawyers in New Mexico.
No.
And she said, "Well, have you talked to Jose?" And I called Jose, and we hit it off immediately. And then I found out he had gone to NYU School of Film, so he's a filmmaker,
right? And
then had gone to Loyola Law School, and he was an entertainment lawyer. And immediately I knew we had to have him on the team. He's like another Dan. He's 3 steps ahead of me, and that's always good. Because as you try to organize things, if you have people that are just running ahead. So we have a great team on our development team, and we're looking forward. The next step is, I pitched our Taos Massacre project to a major studio, to a friend, and he said, you really need an agency relationship. Mm-hmm. So we've been pitching to agencies to partner up with us in Hollywood, and he had a very good point. He said, the reason you want it is you want to create layers like corporations, so that when it gets down to legalities. And I ran that by Jose, and he said, absolutely, that's great. So, I think we're very close to that final complete packages. We got 3 good films. We have a low budget feature, which let's talk a little bit about those. Sure. We had some local guys, from Albuquerque guys, come to us with a script called The Virgin Vampire Hunter. And we, all of us, the team, Dan and Sean and I all do the first read on these things. And we all had the same reaction. We were laughing on the first page. That almost never happens when you're reading people's scripts. What sometimes people's idea of comedy is, so. But these guys had us hooked literally from the first page. And we read through it, and it was just wonderfully done and funny. And
it's a genre kind of, I guess horror comedy is a genre these days, but it was so well done and so funny that we decided, that was one of the first ones we said, we got to take this on and work with these guys.
And so that'll probably be the first project that actually goes in front of the cameras, as they say.
And we're thinking we might shoot that in Las Vegas, New Mexico, right?
Yeah, I think it's set on a college campus. It requires a castle, and there's all those little elements.
You got all that in Las Vegas, yeah.
So,
great.
And then the next project is a Native American project, which is James Lujan,
buddy
Tomahawk.
of mine, former business partner, yeah.
So, talk about Tomahawk.
Well, Tomahawk was exciting. I've known James James basically got me into the business 20-something years ago. We did a documentary together called High Strange New Mexico about the UFO subculture that everybody who lives here knows about, and Roswell and all that crazy stuff. And became partners in a couple other projects. But anyway, I know James was always a writer at heart and was always working on scripts. He's a playwright. He's received awards for that. So anyway, I had kind of, I guess, casually mentioned what we were trying to get together a few years ago, and then a script shows up, The Tomahawk, and we read it. All of us read it again. It's the same reaction. It's like, this is really good. He knows what he's doing. I mean, I knew James knew what he was doing, but I said, you guys read this. He's my friend, so take what I say with a grain of salt, but read it. And they both loved it too. And again, he knows how to write. He knows how to structure a screenplay. And what we're excited about, I don't know if technically it would be, if we get this thing in production, if it would be the first Native American themed TV drama ever, but it would be right up there. It would be pretty close.
And it's a TV show.
A TV show, right, as opposed to a feature film. Yeah.
So now we have an independent feature and we have a TV show.
Yeah. So that's, if people are wondering what we're looking for, those are two of the things we're looking for. And then, so anyway, we're working on that. We're still working with James a little bit on the script, but you've already made some inroads into getting some support for this too. So
yeah. We have my other company, which is our distribution company, Turquoise Trail Releasing, and we have a relationship with the First Nations Experience, which is the first Native American television network that's spreading across the country, and they're in the LA market. And what they've done is they've attached themselves to the PBS stations and taken the extra channels and have created this network. So we signed an agreement that we would be producing scripted content, not documentaries or live events, but scripted content. We have a couple of shows already signed with them, and now we're in the development and getting ready to produce it. And that's going to be a interesting. It'll go prime time, and we'll go into the LA market, and we're going to be competing with primetime shows, and it's going to be interesting to see if we can make a headway into that.
Excited to give it a shot, and excited to, it'll be pretty much a Native American cast, because almost all the characters in it are. And again, it's a contemporary drama. There won't be any cowboys and Indians per se, the old stereotypes. This is really a modern thing, but with a specific flavor to it. And really excited about helping James get this together and getting this thing launched. The other one, as you mentioned, was the Taos Massacres, and that's based on a book that a producer has gotten the rights to. And I don't know how much people know about New Mexico history, but when the army of Stephen Watts Kearny marched into New Mexico in 1846. This was still Mexico here, all the way up to Colorado. And they basically came in and claimed New Mexico for the United States. And the people, the Pueblo Indians and the Hispanic settlers, many of them were not very happy with that situation, and it led to a pretty bloody revolt that carried on. We're looking at a specific incident, but that resistance went on for quite a while, and this is the story of that. And I think it's a fascinating story, and it's got, I think it will still resonate today with people. It's a historical piece, but there's a lot of issues that I think people will identify with.
And we're doing it as a dramatic piece, a narrative piece, not a documentary.
Right,
so
right,
it
absolutely.
it takes a whole different. It'll be a mini series, so
Right.
it'll be 7 episodes. Like I said, Dan's already written the episodes, and we have it at a studio right now. The person that brought the project to me is actually an attorney who deals with land grant
Right.
lawsuits.
Right.
And so it's a very passionate project. And again, it's New Mexico, so the Native American New Mexico, which incorporates Hispanics and Native Americans. And then, Virgin Vampires are just a little off center from that, but it's
Yeah.
New Mexico because we'll shoot it here.
It'll be shot here for
That's
sure.
it. Well, I want you to plug, since you did such a great historical overview, is plug the project you just did for PBS and KNME, and because you did
yeah.
a great
Yeah.
historical overview. And
Well, when in my spare time, of course, I've been a documentary filmmaker, and I do frequently some work for public television here, KNME TV. And I know about, it was funny that we had started working on this piece about the Taos Massacres because that came up as part of the documentary I was working on, which was essentially a history of New Mexico as seen through the legal system. So in this piece we start back when the Spanish first came here, built the capital in Santa Fe, and instituted Spanish law, and we talk a little bit about how that was different. What happened when Kearny came in, took over, instituted military law and some form of American law, and then really how difficult it was to have any law and order in New Mexico in the late 19th century. I mean, everybody knows Billy the Kid, but he was just one of many criminals, including politicians and federal government officials who were in New Mexico. And so the middle of the story is basically how hard it was to have, to control anything here at all, how wild it was, and how it was part of the reason it took New Mexico so long to get into the Union, 1912, is because it's like they're out there killing and murdering people every day, or hanging them, lynching them, whatever. It was just wild. And so we finally got that under control. And then the last part of it talks more about modern day stuff, and some of the landmark federal court cases is really what we specifically focused on. Was the federal court. But anyway, so it's, and you can watch it for free until June 20th off the KNME website. So check it out if you
good plug.
Yeah.
I'm gonna wrap up here with Tony, and we'll probably come back later, either today and tomorrow, and talk a little bit more about some other projects. I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico, at the Crown Hotel at the Albuquerque Film and Music Experience, and we'll be right back in about 10 minutes with a local filmmaker and a filmmaker that has a film in the festival. So stay tuned.